Hi guys, my name is Riven Phoenix, and this is Drawing the Human Figure from Your Mind, Lesson 5. So, in this video, we're now going to understand our invention from the back view. So we've already studied the front view, and we've began to understand the side view. And now we also need to look at the back view to help our brain slowly understand our invention in 3D form. So we're trying to creep in this information at a very slow pace. So let's get this into this. So again, I'm going to start out by marking 2 dots and divide it again in half. I'll just measure this, make sure that I'm kind of there, and I'll mark again the center. So for the front view, we've been marking the center of the crotch, and here we're just going to specify as a reference from the back view as to where it's where the landscape mark is. Next we'll do the same thing, divide it in 4 parts, and then divide it in 8 parts, giving us the 8-head concept we're interested in right now. Okay, so for the front view, we had understood that we would draw out the head by making a simple representation of its structure. And then what happened is when we got to the side view, so I'll mark it here, we also understood that from the middle we would make a line towards the right at an angle, and then go all the way down to where this dot is to make the chin, go up, go all the way around and make this egg shape to give us the side of the head. So for the back view, we can now state that if the side view has an egg shape in this form, then we should represent it in the back view as so. So usually what I like to do is you can just shade the back a little bit. You don't have to get all 3D here, just to help you understand that we're now looking at the back view. So now we have the bottom of the chin here, and when we looked at the next item, which was 1/3 down, where the collarbone sits in 3D space on the side view, it stated that we could assume that the opening of the rib cage can stop over here where this dot is at the 1/3 mark, going in this direction. So for the back view, we can now draw the spinal column a little bit down here for now. 1/3 down would give us the back of the rib cage. So if you divide this in 3 parts, you would get the collarbone over here, but because it's on an angle, we can now begin to just lightly draw in where the back view of the rib cage is going to be. Okay, so over here we had also stated that now that we know where the chest nipples are supposed to be, so we could safely assume that we could go down, assume that the nipples for the chest are here, and stop and make a slight horizontal line specifying the sternum. And because we knew that if we looked at the bottom of the third head and 1/3 down, giving us the hip section, uh, where the love handles would be, we could safely assume that we could begin to make the angle for the hip at this angle. So what happens here is that when we began to make the shape up above, 1/3 above, and start to understand the side pose, we can now come here in the back and see that if the rib cage ends here, then obviously we can now just about here stop in this manner. So if you go back to the bottom of the second head where the chin was, where we have specified where the nipples were. So we know from the front view that if we can, now here I'll just slightly mark the point of the nipples where they're supposed to be. Then I can make that V shape, saying that this is where the joints for the shoulders are supposed to be. And now this gives me the ability to understand how the construction of the rib is going to look from the back. But you'll notice that I'm not drawing anything on the back now. So the next item was the collarbone. So in the side pose, if we knew where the navel was and drew an imaginary line going all the way up and stop right here, you can see also from the back, just like we had done in the front where we were drawing the entire collarbone, we can come here and just stop here, not going over the rib. And this basically just gives us the understanding now in 3D space as to what's going on, as to how these forms are in front and back of each other. Next item would be where the love handles were. And we stated that if we had gone down from the nipple, and if the love handles are going to be here, then our mark for the hip section is going to look like this. Now for the front we had just made lines, so for now we'll do the same exact thing. Just make a line going down to represent the hip area, and we'll get into the a deeper understanding of this area later on in the next few lessons that are about to come up. But here just we're really interested in the simplification design of it. So here we can now state that 2/3 from the crotch area we had marked the landmarks for where the legs were going to be fixed at. And on the bottom of the 6th, we had stated that if we drew our legs, we would stop and the knee joint would be on the other side of this. We can do the same thing here. And then of course the lower leg can now be put in place making it like so. Okay, so now we just move on to the hands on the upper arm, stop at where the navel is supposed to be, then draw the lower arm 1/3 down and stop where the wrist is for both areas, for both arms. And do the same thing here. Then we can now draw the hand, making it appear that we're looking at it from the other side. So we'll put the thumb on the other side. So on the front view, when we had Then the front view, the thumb was on this side, but on the back view, the thumb is on the other side. And then we can just go ahead and draw the spine just about down here. And it's safe to make the hip be represented a little much more clearly. So if you want, you can even put a little shading here just to help your brain begin to understand the three-dimensional part, the three-dimensional view of this invention that we're doing here. Let's go ahead and also complete the rib cage that we were working on. So we had said that where the crotch would meet, we will go all the way down here, making it at this angle, right? And these were coming at this angle. And then if we had a straight line here, we would mark the to the right the joint for the leg, and go down. So if this was a line down here, we'd stop towards the left and make the knee, and then stop at the very bottom, giving it that balanced look that we need. And again, with the arms, we can do the same thing here. Stop at where the navel was, make it look like a pendulum so we can get the markings correct, and just finish it off with the hand. Okay, so now we have the back view, the side view. So why don't we go ahead and actually complete this by making the front view, and let's just see how this all looks together. So here I can just eyeball all this. If you're doing this with me, just follow along. Okay, so the front, again, we had stated that we would draw out the simple form, a simple shape for the head. So here you can see what the details are, but here we haven't even gone into actually marking the center of the head or any features there. So 1/3 down, divided in 2/3, we make the V, and then we state that this is where the nipples are going to be. This is where the navel is, imaginary line specifying the joint of the shoulders. Then 1/3 down from the navel, it specified that right where the nipples were, if we drew an imaginary line, we would get 2 points to where the love handles would be, like so. And then we would get the hip. And then from the crotch above 2/3, we mark the 2 landmarks for where the legs are. Draw the upper leg first, stop, draw the knee, and do the same for the other leg. So here I'm just being a little quick here. And then from the navel 1/3 up, we had stated that we could figure out the ending of the rib cage and draw it out. Draw out the basic egg-shaped design. I'll shade it a little bit to make it look interesting. And then draw the arm stopping at the navel, the elbow. Then draw again, stop where the crotch was, and around 1/3 down, Stop at the wrist placement. Then go ahead and finish it off. So now we have completed the basic understanding of our invention. So what we've been doing so far is that the invention of this human structure has been nothing more than actually just an idea that we've been working around in our head. And from our point of view, we're saying that when we are inventing the human being, there is no such thing as a human being, and this is allowing us to now begin to develop these ideas in an organic way and put them onto paper by simplifying the design as very simple forms. So the next step here that we need to do is, though this is now beginning to make sense, and if you measure your progress, you'll see that you have come a long way and you're learning a lot, because your brain is able to grasp these ideas as these simplified inventions. So the next step we have to do is, now we need to understand this in a much more 3D form. And to do that, if we have the front view, the back view, and the side view, we now need to look at this from a 3/4 view. So here is the beginning of the journey into helping our brain come up with very different techniques of drawing and research and approaching the invention in a very scientific way. So we'll get into the basics of this as to how we can solve these problems by working it out. So I look forward to the other lesson, and I hope you'll join me again. Thank you.